Fights are over with. Looking at every single one of the fights that happened tonight for the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, I would have to say, if I were giving out the contracts, uh, you know, I know you're not supposed to, but I put backstory, I put all that into effect whenever I'm picking. And that's one of the craziest stories, man. The guy's father died in March, and his father died very shortly after finding out that he would be on the Dana White Contender Series, so he knew he was going to be on the show. So it was real emotional for that kid. And he came out, and the other kid was 9-0, and they were saying he's a good striker, yada yada. He was 2 inches bigger, whatever. And then dude came out, Anthony Hernandez came out and just fucked him up, knocked him unconscious. And then, that was the second to last fight. I didn't even watch the last fight. I was like, nothing's gonna top it. I was like, unless this dude like fucking, and watch, I'll fucking go look on Twitter later, and this dude spinning wheel kick knocked his head off in the last fight, and then I'll have to take back my words. But for right now, Anthony Hernandez, middleweight. I think that's a good weight to be fighting at today in the UFC, in my opinion. Especially you're too young. You might not ever have to get the Yoel Romero to save your career there. And then the next, or not the next, because the next one's fucking Cerrone and Leon Edwards this Saturday. We already talked about that one a bunch of times. I think it's in with the new, out with the old type shit. And then so I want to move on to the Ultimate Fighter finale, Brad Tavares versus Israel Adesanya. And I think it's hard for me just because Brad Tavares has only been knocked out twice in his MMA career. Once to Robert Whittaker in 2015. So, I mean, 3 years, champ. The other one was Tim Bosch in 2014. So 4 years ago, Tim Bosch. What to make of that? Who knows? Every fighter grows from there, But I'd say it's probably Adesanya's toughest fight. And he didn't look too good in the Vettori fight. I know he said that, he thinks he dominated the fight, yada yada. But he didn't look too great in the Marvin Vettori fight. So I think unless he came very prepared, went hard in training camp, and is ready for this fight, he better come ready. I'm gonna still pick him by knockout just because I like the up and coming fighters. I like to get behind some of the up and coming fighters. Some of my favorite fighters are up and coming fighters. Thiago Alves, Darren Till, not Thiago Alves, Thiago Santos. My bad, homie, my bad. Thiago Santos, Anthony Smith, Mike Perry, Darren Till. I like a bunch of upcoming fighters. Select group of who I would call my favorite fighters. So anyway, I put my money on Adesanya, but my favorite fighters is already moving me on to my last topic. I'm gonna make a short video today, and that is UFC 226. I'm gonna put my predictions in right now. Could change, and we'll talk about it if it does. But for right now, the main event of that card. This is a stacked card, by the way. One of the best cards of the year. I thought this past one, 225, was going to be one of the best cards, but then I looked at this whole thing. I was like, what the fuck, man? They're killing it, right? And mad close. I heard that, by the way, the fucking 225 got 150, and then I heard that was a lie. They got 250. 250 is not that much better, man. Especially you would have thought that this would have been your new Kobe Covington's a draw, yada yada. 250, man. What you talking about, Shit, you better fight Joe Rogan next. Or you ain't no fucking draw, homie. Fuck you talking about? Kobe Covington, that's the only fight is Joe Rogan. That's the only fight. And you gotta let him be TRT'd up. because you know he too damn healthy with his body to come off TRT like that. And that fight would take way too long. So motherfucker agree to let him take TRT in the fight and fight Joe Rogan, and then you'll become a draw. If that doesn't get you at least 500 plus, I'll tell you where I live at. We'll fight. We can fight. You know what I'm saying? If that don't do 500, I'll fight you. You know? So, may not be an equal trade there. Maybe that's a lose-lose for you, but who knows? UFC 226, which I think is going to kill 250. If 250 was the number. If it wasn't 150, I know they would murder 150. But 226, if I had to put a number, just because Cormier and Stipe are not the biggest draws, Holloway not the biggest draw, you know, and Ngannou kind of big draw, third fight, just lost. You know, a couple. It's a lot of good fights on that card, but I mean, overall, I think maybe there is maybe like 250, 300,000 like hardcore fans, maybe somewhere in there, maybe a little less. There are hardcore fans that I think most of them will buy it. And then you got to think about other people. It's just champion versus champion. You could sell that. They did the Ultimate Fighter behind this pay-per-view. You could sell that. It's International Fight Week. Always does good numbers. You could sell that. And then just a lot of secondary cards for that main event fight. I'm gonna pick Stipe because I don't like the fact that Daniel's leaving light heavyweight. He thinks he can eat now. He don't have to cut his weight to light heavyweight. I don't like that shit. I'd rather see him fight Gustafsson. So I'm a little mad about the whole Stipe thing, but whatever. I'm gonna pick Stipe because fuck Cormier. Max Holloway versus Brian Ortega is a hard fight for me to pick. One of the hardest that I've picked all year, probably. But I gotta give it to Max Holloway, man. Because he's not gonna get tapped out. He's not gonna get knocked out. None of that. He's gonna fight all the way to the end, and he's got way more experience than this kid. So I think he's got the tools up here to know not to, you know, gas himself out and get his shit going later on, win the later rounds and shit, and he win himself a decision, which I think would be nice leading up to the main event. It'd be a nice 25-minute build-up leading to the main event, which should have like a big bang at the end of the night, you know? I'm not saying it should be so late at night, but the main event is always supposed to have like a big poof, like a big pew feeling, like oh shit, that just happened, you know? A good example of that was Marlon Moraes, Jimmy Rivera. Although, you know, you hate that. You just watched all that just for that, and you hate that if you went there, you just stayed, you watched all that, and that was your favorite fight, and you thought it was going to be so sick, and it ended just like that. But that's honestly, like, go back to that fight and just imagine how your adrenaline rush and how crazy that rush was. It was insane because you were just, it was a good card. You're watching the card. You're like, oh shit, this fight's gonna be awesome. And the fight comes out, and he fucking head kick knocks him out real quick, and it's over. And you're like, what the fuck just happened? You know, you're stunned. You don't know what the fuck to say. But and, you know, you love cards like that, and I think that's what Stipe Cormier is gonna be. If it's not the same exact thing as Holloway Ortega, where it's a back and forth fight about who's got more cardio and shit like that, then I think it's going to be one-sided, beating from Stipe beating the fuck out of Cormier. I'm calling that right now, dude. I think if it's not back and forth, like immediately, if Cormier doesn't immediately take some kind of step charge forward and say, establish some kind of dominance, you know, right off the start landing some shit, and Stipe just kind of controls the whole entire fight from the first round by the second round, if Daniel Cormier doesn't do anything to where I perceive relevant, I will just automatically assume he's going to get his shit kicked in for the rest of the fight. Because Cormier is a quitter. But, so I got Stipe, Max, and then Ngannou versus Lewis. I got Derek Lewis. Ngannou is one of those up-and-coming rising stars that I didn't agree with. I don't like that cheesy-ass fucking... They were in the press conference and he was fighting. I know you gotta build it up because Stipe don't fucking talk shit and Ngannou could barely talk English. So I know you can't really build it up that well. But at the same time, you're like, this guy hits as hard as a fucking Ford Taurus or whatever. You said 1997 Taurus. Whatever the fuck you said, man. That's fucking corny as fuck. And you know it, man. You shouldn't have did that shit. And it immediately made me want to go against that man. So I am going against that man. I hope Derek Lewis knocks him out in the first round. And honestly, if you have to think about it, both men have short gas tanks. Both men are heavy strikers. And Lewis just has way more experience. So... what kind of fight are we gonna see here? You know, is it just gonna be a brawl? Because Lewis can get clipped, and he could lose. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but he could. I'm going for Lewis. I think Lewis is gonna win, in my opinion, in my hopes, you know, all that. I hope I know he's gonna win. I got confidence. So Lewis first round knockout. Michael Chiesa versus Anthony Pettis. I say this about Sergio, I say this about Anthony, I say about both of them, man. I bet against them. I bet for them a bunch of times. And they let me down. And it just came to a point where I just can't bet for them anymore. And in this fight with Michael Chiesa, who is coming off a loss where he didn't tap out, and he was immediately responsive to the referee whenever the referee stopped the fight, may have a lot of vengeance saved up in him. May come out with the right game plan. And, you know, as we could see with the Dustin Poirier fight, Anthony Pettis doesn't fight well when you take him down and you make it an ugly fight, you know? And, you know, Michael Chiesa, he's a wrestler. He's always been a wrestler. And with Kevin Lee, he was showing he was doing good wrestling. He was defending well. You know, he got locked up in that choke, but Kevin Lee's a great wrestler. He's a great jiu-jitsu fighter, you know. So it was a good ground matchup for Kevin Lee and Michael Chiesa with Michael Chiesa and Anthony Pettis. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe Anthony Pettis is some fucking wizard on the ground. I just don't know about it. But Michael Chiesa clearly has the advantage on the ground there. So I think it goes the same exact way it went with the Dustin Poirier Anthony Pettis fight, where you know, it does okay standing up, and then next thing you know, Chiesa's laying down on top of him, and he's beating him up from the top. You know, what are you gonna do? Something happened, but anyway, last.